the season to be sick. Fa la 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 la, la 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 la. This is one of those days where I'm either going to accept the fact that it's going to be a really messy video, or I'm just going to start it over and over and over again until I get something that I like. So we'll see how that goes. Hi everyone. Hey. Today I'm giving, and hi David, that's who I'm talking to. Hi David, hi. I have not forgotten. I'm just being attacked by a dog and managing some sick kids. My younger son was recently, a few days ago, though not funny, was diagnosed with an upper respiratory infection. It could be called bronchitis or RSV, and so my younger son is on a round of steroids and breathing treatments as we are, working on getting him to feel better. So yeah, that's been an interesting juxtaposition to what I'm going to be talking about today, which is the Iliad. And so I'm going to start talking about more narrowly my experience and what's going on in the book so far. I'm going to keep it spoiler free because I know that not everybody who watches this wants to. I don't know, can classic literature be spoiled? Yes, it can. So I'm not going to say that it can't be spoiled, but it would be kind of difficult to be spoiled. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know if that's actually true. I wanted to talk about the Iliad specifically, and then broaden the conversation out to something a little bit more universal. And so I wanted to start this conversation with saying that about about book 15, I really hit a stride, and there was something that really clicked for me with the Iliad, and now I'm in the sweet spot that a subscriber termed. Her name is Deborah Johnson. So Deborah and I are in this book club together, and I promise this has a purpose. We're in a book club together, and she mentioned that when you hit the sweet spot with your reading, and it's like you get to the point where you want to pick up the book, that you're really invested, and that it's a joy. Like you are thinking over and over and over about when you can pick up the book next, or when the book has hooked you enough that you want or have the momentum to see it through to the end, the sweet spot. And I have hit the sweet spot in chapter 15 of the Iliad, which is a little over halfway, which is, relatively normal for me when you're reading some slower type of literature. Most books don't, a lot of classics don't hook me right away, and so it takes a little bit of that work, which will go into my second part of the discussion. So me and the Iliad, about chapter 15, I really started enjoying the story. I really had a clear grasp on who all of the main characters are. I'll run through them really. We have Menelaus, and we have Hector, and arrogant, if not sort of curmudgeoned Achilles, Apollo, who I am kind of slightly crushing on in this book, which is weird to say, because he kind of swoops in at this moment and says magic words to reinvigorate the fighting. And we have the Ajax boys, Hera and Zeus, of course. And anyways, so instead of me just listing a character list, there are all of these names that now I feel like I've really gotten to know who they are and their role in the battle, what side they're fighting on. Getting all of that straight has been a feat for me, because as I've mentioned before, I don't have that much experience with Greek literature, and so it really took a lot of time to sit down and figure out who your major characters are. I think for some people in my group, that happened in around chapter 9 and 10, but for me it took a little bit longer to really sink into the story. I'm going to share a quote though really quick, and then I'll get into talking about the writing style. So it says, and Hector was like a pitiless lion coming down on cattle, gone to graze in a great meadow, hundreds of them, tended by a herdsman, not yet skilled at fighting a wild beast to prevent the slaughter of a cow. Poor fellow, either at the forefront of the herd or at the rear, he keeps pace with his cattle, but into their midst the lion leaps and takes one as all the rest stampede. Now the Achaeans, under attack by Hector and Father Zeus, broke and ran like cattle. One of the aspects of the writing in the Iliad is this beautiful comparison of animals and battle, or people in battle. And so it feels like as this battle is raging, all of a sudden we'll zoom in on a couple of characters and there will be this gorgeous metaphor of lions and cows like this, or it'll be like dogs and sheep, or there'll be like this metaphor of someone, you know, going off to slaughter, or a lion about to pounce on its prey. And it provides this beautiful imagery to the reader as to how some of these battles are playing out. Later on in the story, I think it was in chapter 16 or 17, there is this scene where a soldier is standing over the body of another soldier, and the metaphor drawn was that this a cow who has just birthed the calf stands over her calf and will, you know, attack any animal that comes near it or wanting to harm it. And it really just adds a lot of depth to what's going on in the story, and it's something that I've really tremendously appreciated. And it's also an aspect of the book that makes me want to go back and read and see where that metaphor really begins, because I don't think I was picking up on it at the beginning, or maybe it's coming out more as the battle has become more heated. I'm not really sure. So I've been really enjoying the Iliad. I've definitely hit the sweet spot. I cannot wait to see what happens. And my sweet husband, as a word of comfort as I was struggling through with it. Again, I'm going to get to that in the second half of this video. You know, provided this a word of comfort, saying that I think it's better in the second half. It's more about what the backstory or how the story plays out rather than just fighting. But again, I'm really just enjoying everything that's going on. So the second part of this, beyond the update and talking about some of the language, is a question, and it's why do you read difficult or challenging literature? So as I've been thinking about this, I'm wondering, you know, why do we read difficult or challenging literature? I have to say, or I will say, that this has been, the Iliad by Homer has been one of the most challenging books that I've read this year. I really had to get my grasp on how the world is structured, meaning that there are like these gods that intervene or get mixed up with these lives of mortals. There's magic in this. There's, you know, I don't know another definition except for magic. These sort of magical things appear. It's you know, fantasy written in you know, poetry. So there's just a lot going on and a lot of characters to keep track of, and just has a different mindset than I'm used to. I'm not used to glory being in all of those that one kills. I'm not used to that. I'm sort of used to literature that sides on the side of compassion. So a lot of the things I've had to get used to. And so one of the questions that I've asked myself is, why do I read difficult literature, challenging literature, literature that is maybe a slog, which I don't feel that way now, especially now that I've hit the sweet spot, but I am going to attempt to answer my own question. I think part of it is that it builds my self-efficacy. I'm actually proud of myself when I read books that I have and continue to find challenging. And that would definitely be, you know, one of which was Mrs. Dalloway. Not a super challenging book, but definitely took a minute to understand what she was doing, to understand her narrative style, and the stream of consciousness through a choir of voices. That was not the easiest approach, and even if you would have told me up front that is what it is about, the stream of consciousness, I already knew. But when you're actually experiencing it and you're figuring out how this narrative is unfolding, it does take some work. And I've heard this book be called tedious. People have DNF'd it and so on and so forth. And I think it's because it's not the easiest to just pick up and read. But in a weird way, that's one of the reasons why I loved Mrs. Dalloway, because it didn't just give me the narrative so easily and that I had to work for it. So building self-efficacy. I also often wonder if the experience as a whole is going to give me something that I, am going to be rewarded by. There's something in the literature that's beautiful, that there is something to be gained from it. And not just like in a self-efficacy kind of way, but that the author is trying to say something, and the only way they can say it with the most honesty and integrity is to do it in a very specific style that might be challenging, or they're trying to grasp an idea that is difficult to explain, and the way to do it is to take the reader on a journey. And I think though I haven't read all of it, I've read, a good couple hundred pages of Swann's Way by Marcel Proust. And again, I think that though I don't particularly love this book, I think that it has something to offer about what nostalgia is, what memory is, and the way that we look back on our lives, the way that the past plays into the present, into the future. And so again, it's sort of like a very cerebral concept, and so maybe coming out and saying, this is what I'm trying to do, and here's a narrative that is doing it, Marcel Proust is sort of tugging the reader along on this journey to experience an aspect of memory and nostalgia that isn't just going to give it to you. I don't know. I guess, like, if I was going to be honest and say when I was younger, I kind of felt sort of smug when I read a difficult book. I was like, well, yes, I have read that, and that would be maybe the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And again, I don't think Lord of the Rings is super difficult, but I think that, you can be kind of smug when you say that, oh, yes, I've read the Lord of the Rings, or I've read, Marcel Proust. And then, I'm not really sure. I'm sure I could keep on going about why I read difficult literature, but I do think that also there is a pleasure in getting it. Like, I understand what they're trying to do, and I have worked really hard, and now I'm at the place where I understand what they're doing, and I get it. And I think that with the Iliad, part of it is just because of its age, and the style is not what I'm used to, but now I'm understanding some of the themes and some of the ideas that Homer was trying to get across. I'm finding some parts very poignant and emotional even. I mean, not like teary or anything, but as certain people have died, and their reactions on the battlefield has been really touching in some ways. And so, but I'm like, okay, there was a point where I wasn't getting it, and now I'm getting it, and that feels really, really good. So yeah, all of these interesting reasons. I'm cutting this in really quick. I remembered another reason as to why I enjoy difficult literature, and I thought it was important to bring up. And it's that, like, I know that some of these texts a lot of texts were not written for the reader nowadays in 2021. I almost said 2022. I also know that I'm not so smug or arrogant to think that every text means that it's written for a modern reader. And so there's some things that I need to adjust about my reading, my expectations, my understanding of language and story structure, narrative, and so on and so forth, in order to comprehend and read something that maybe is slower paced, uses difficult language, uses a narrative style that is not necessarily to my taste. Again, going back to the Iliad, I am like, who are all these people, and what are all their names? And I know that there is a point and a purpose to that, and it's upon me to learn that in order to appreciate those aspects about the Iliad, versus me being so smug and arrogant to say, hey, it's written, I should just get it right away. It should be written for me as a reader of the, reading in 2021. So yeah, I just wanted to add that I know that reading older literature, which can be more difficult or challenging in some way, is really growing my context of literature and where it's come from and how far it's come. But it means that I have a lot of learning to do in order to appreciate that context. So I wanted to add that in. Okay, back to what I was saying. And I'm hoping to open up a conversation to you all about why you read challenging, literature, things that maybe are not the easiest to get through, or maybe considered a slog to some people. But that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. David, in particular, I hope you are doing well, and I look forward to what you're going to say about the Iliad. I know we're kind of rounding the corner of the end of this wonderful and challenging book, and I really look forward to what you're going to say about difficult literature. That is it from me, so thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye, guys.